What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Now, something very interesting happened yesterday. The Hacker Hunter Call of Duty creator Call of Shame has now switched a 180-degree direction where they are now going to be talking about the word of God on their channel. They essentially renamed their channel the Divine Anchor. Now, if you want to know the reason why they decided to switch directions and whatnot, feel free to go to my post. I did save their message of why they quit Call of Duty content creation. What is going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. My name is Pure Noble. I'm just a fellow Call of Duty player that likes to nerd out on everything Call of Duty related. We talk about the season changes, we talk about Call of Duty news, we talk about weapon balancing, we talk about the new weapon reviews, we talk about tips and tricks here and there that I learned as a Call of Duty player that I hope that I can instill to all new Call of Duty players out there that are just coming onto the scene. But if anything, guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. Keep killing it out there. Now, for all of those who have never even heard about this guy, essentially he is a hacker hunter. That's what we call these content creators in the scene. For me, at a certain point in my content creation journey, I was kind of leaning towards that direction, but you know, the more I learned about how much harder it is to prove validity at 100% evidence, right? The only type of hacker hunter or hacker exposure content creation that I actually do talk about is things that are very black and white, aka, you know, their walls or their ESP show on their stream. You can see them blatantly aim locking on someone's head while they're flying, parachuting down onto the ground, you know, very obvious things like that. That's the only time I'm actually gonna cover it, not necessarily expose it, because I'm not the one that finds it. I'll see it on, like, say, Itapa's channel or other content creators, and then I'll cover it myself. But the reason why I want to cover it today is that Call of Shame, in the very beginning stages of Call of Shame, he was fairly good with the type of content that he was covering in regards to cheating accusations and whatnot. Some of his evidence that he gave was very sound, was very 100%, but for whatever reason, shortly soon after that, I'm going to say maybe after 6 months to a year, he really started going off on the deep end on essentially just covering bigger creators, even small creators too, and giving types of evidence that could be very easily disproven. He'd be talking about how X streamer is having 0 recoil with this gun, when if any Call of Duty player knows about Call of Duty, if they're using that specific gun, right, that gun maybe might have the lowest recoil. Did he talk about the attachments that was on the gun to make the recoil better? Call of Shame did not go into any of those specific details. Or when a certain player somehow knew that the other enemy was around the corner or in this building without any additional evidence to show, when there's so much things that can give away an enemy's position, right? Enemy team's ping, enemy's footstep audio, UAVs, advanced UAVs, bird's eye view perk, gunfire audio that's coming in from that direction. There are so many things to give away an enemy's position, but Call of Shame does not verify those additional details before saying, hey, this X player, this X streamer is using walls. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, even though he might have flourished in the Call of Duty community, I do have to thank him in a certain way. Watching his content made me reevaluate how I should approach my content when it comes to teaching beginner and casual Call of Duty players. I 100% believe that all these accusations that players are doing to one another can be fully resolved, and the level of accusations happening can drop to a very low percentage if players just understood the mechanics of Call of Duty better. You know, when you have players stating things like, oh, my recoil doesn't do like that, or oh, when I try to trace a player, my gun doesn't move as smoothly as that. Have they taken a look at their settings? Have they readjusted their settings, or are they playing on default settings? Have they tested the weapons out? Have they figured out which weapon has the lowest recoil? And if that player is in question is also using the same gun that has the lowest recoil, have you taken a look at the attachments that the person is using in the kill cam? If players had a better understanding of how to adjust their controller settings, how to adjust their weapons, how to adjust their attachments, why each attachment will give you that X amount of recoil control, a lot of these back and forth and pointing fingers at one another significantly drops. So let's take this gun for example. This is the AMAX, right? The CR56 AMAX. If you notice, look at the bottom right, I only have a red dot on, extended mag, and nothing else. I don't have a muzzle, I don't have any recoil springs or whatnot. This is a gun that has the highest gun kick recoil and has the highest overall recoil next to the AK-47. So let's try this out. So when you saw the first target dummy, right? Obviously, it's much more easier and less noticeable to see the recoil on the first one. But those are the type of things that people are accusing on. Even on the second one too. If I really try, right? I'm moving left and right on my sticks. I'm strafing. I'm countering the recoil. It almost looks like I have no recoil too, and I have been called out on my controller videos. But as they continue to do these callouts, have they taken the notice or information about how my sensitivity multiplier is not your standard? It's brought down to 0.90. Or if I go to my controller settings, where they find out that my dead zone inputs are also not standard, right? Left minimum 2, right minimum 10. No, right? All they see is just this. All they see is this, and when they think, oh, this guy has no recoil on it, he must be using some type of device, he must be using a Cronus Zen or whatnot. But when you look over here, you can obviously see that there is recoil. Now, could someone argue and say, hey, you're toggling Cronus, blah, blah, blah? Yes, of course. Me recording this right now, right? I'm not showing the controller, right? You know, not showing the wires, blah, blah, blah. There's only so much you can do as a content creator to show this type of thing. You could do a PC check, sure. You could literally buy a whole second computer. You can play on console, right? But at the same time, you gotta think, why does a creator have to go through X amount of lengths just to prove to that individual that they are not using something? The only big content creator that I can think of that kind of did it fairly well is Joe, right? Joe is always getting accusations left and right about his aim, blah, blah, blah. What he did, he hooked up his PS5 console, streamed on his console, and he performed exactly the same. And you know what people started saying? Oh, well, we didn't see you hook up the console. You could be showing the console on stream, but is that the one you're actually playing on? What if you just changed the settings on your PC to show that it made it look like the game is on console? Then you have people mentioning, oh, computer vision, right? Joe, you have a PC, you can easily run computer vision on console to still have aimbot. Or you have individuals saying, hey, we didn't see you connect the console to the PC. We didn't see you on stream booting up the console and making sure that the game that we're seeing on your stream is the same game that's on the console. Who knows? What if you have the console on, but not the HDMI is plugged into something else while you're actually playing the game on PC? At that point, when you look at those individuals, what can you do? Like, seriously. And this is what I mean, where there are just certain individuals that no matter what you do, no matter what you say, if they have an agenda, if they have a bias, they are going to run with it, rather than just saying, hey, my bad, G, you actually did a couple of things to prove that you're legit. You know what? Maybe you are. Maybe I stand corrected. Keynote, stand corrected. That's the very hard thing to do, because that means they have to admit that they're wrong and they have to show a level of accountability. For those of you who've been around my content long enough, you'll know that I covered the Bobby Puff incident, right? That big Warzone streamer, he got banned live, and unfortunately that's all it was. And he, for the next couple of days and whatnot, he was being bombarded with, hey, I told you you're a cheater, you know, you're a fake content creator, blah, 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 you're lying to your audience. And I covered that video because at that time, being banned live, that was almost 99% sure he was running something. But then a couple of days after that, if you remember, Activision made an announcement and they said that there's an exploit going around, that there is ways that a player can be falsely banned. We are going to unban those players that were falsely banned, and Bobby Puff was one of them. Did I double down and say that he was a cheater? No. Shortly after Activision made that announcement, I made a second video saying, hey, what I thought about Bobby Puff is wrong. Unfortunately, here's an updated information about how he could have been falsely banned, and obviously with the timelines it looks correct because now Bobby Puff is unbanned. So when it comes to like accusations and cheating and whatnot, you know, I'll cover it. But if for whatever reason the information that I put in that video is now false or is wrong, or new information that came up to now make that certain player that was guilty now innocent, I will make a follow-up video on that, because that's taking accountability and that's making sure that the credibility of what I talk about stays true on this channel. So let's head back to the game. Right now I'm gonna have the AIMBOT that has recoil here. You can see on the bottom right, I have a red dot, I have a compensator, I have the ported compensator, and then I have an extended mag, and then as well as the recoil springs. You see how much more sus that recoil looks, but it still has a level of recoil that is still noticeable when you get up close. Most times when you're watching streamers, when you're watching content creators, when you're watching players in the kill cam, all you're seeing is this, right? all you're seeing is that. So in order to really pinpoint if they're using something or not, right, you literally have to clip that kill cam, clip that moment in the stream or that content, play it back on your computer at 0 point whatever speed, and you have to zoom in on the target, and then you can actually see the recoil happening on the target. But no, certain players and individuals are not going to do that because it's going to prove them wrong. It's going to show that, oh my gosh, wait, the player that I'm accusing is actually just having regular recoil. It just looks like it doesn't have recoil. Now don't get me wrong guys, right? I'm not glazing hackers. I'm not trying to cover for hackers. Literally at the end of my video, I always say hashtag bring back honest gaming, and that's what I want to bring back to the scene. That's the reason why I make this content, to help educate more players who don't necessarily understand the mechanics of the game. I want players to look at, say, a certain player or a certain content creator's gameplay and say, hey, you know what, let me try find a video that has their controller settings. Let me find out what type of attachments he's using on this weapon that he's using so much. How is he getting this type of recoil control? That's how it was back then. When a player was better than another individual in a multiplayer match, it wasn't just straight accusations. It was, hey, let me add you up, bro. Let me join you in the party. Can you teach me a couple of things on how to do better with my aim, on how to do better with my recoil? And boom, long-time friendships were made during that Call of Duty era. Now looking back at this video, it wasn't necessarily a nerdy Call of Duty video. It was more like a Call of Duty rant. I'm so sorry, but if anything guys, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. And that's all we're gonna have for this video, folks. If this video gave you any additional insight and context that you did enjoy, that gave you value, please drop a like on the video. It helps it tremendously in the algorithm. And if you enjoy the content overall and you also want to nerd out with Call of Duty with me, please drop a sub to the channel. We'd love to see you here for the next video, okay? But as always, stay pure, stay noble, and hashtag bring back honest gaming. Later, guys.